Honestly, for the longest time, I could not get my alocasias to look lush and beautiful. Do you feel like no matter what you try, you have just stuck on 3 leaves with your alocasia forever? I have gone 4, 5, 6 years where my alocasias were okay, they were growing okay, but I never really understood it until I honestly do feel like I've cracked the code because look at this girl. Look at it. Look at all the leaves and the growth. And this one, this Alocasia 𝗣𝗥𝗡𝗧 is the hardest thing I've ever grown. So if you're sick of just having 3 leaves on your alocasia, I promise you this video is going to help because I'm going to spill the tea on everything that I have learned about alocasias and what they love to give you the most amazing growth. So the first tip that you need to understand is watering these guys. And look, we all talk about watering a lot. There's a lot of videos out there. Some of us love it. Some of us don't do it enough. I'm very much an underwaterer when it comes to alocasias. But alocasias, they're one of those plants, I call them a diva for a reason, because they need a good, consistent watering rhythm. Now, when I say rhythm, you can't just do it every 7 days for the full year. You still have to go seasonally. But for my alocasias, I never let them swing from bone dry to swamp status, right? And when you water them, you want to drain them as much as possible in that moment. Get the water running through, give it 2 times, 3 times as much water as you need to because you want to soak the soil mix as much as possible and then let it all drain out. You need the right soil mix to hold the right amount of water, not too much, not too little. We'll talk about that a bit later. Every time you water them, if there's a saucer underneath, don't leave water in the bottom of the soil in the saucer. So watering is super important because once you water it, you don't want it to dry out completely. A water meter does come in really handy with these guys, but ultimately just let them dry out about halfway. But at the same time, you can't give them soggy, damp, wet, crappy roots. They can't sit in water for too long. So water heavily, drain thoroughly, and then drain your saucer and don't let it sit in any water. For a long time there, I actually had this girl, she's very little, much smaller than this. I had this girl in my IKEA cabinet, and that's about 80% on average, 80–90% humidity. And it was too much. My girl just didn't grow. And I actually thought that was the trick to alocasias, to give them high humidity. No, I learned my lesson very well. They actually sit much better at around 60–70% humidity if you can control it. Grab yourself a humidifier and get one of those smart humidifiers that you can control on your phone that turn on and off as needed, and see if you can keep your humidity at around 60–65%. That works perfectly for me. So as we run through, you're going to notice that these Alocasia divas, they like everything somewhere in the middle. So I want you to remember the Goldilocks zone, or Goldilocks, as we go through this video, because you're going to see me calling the Goldilocks zone quite a bit. So when it comes to watering and humidity, they're in the Goldilocks zone. Not too much water, not too little water, right in the middle. Okay, tip number 2, we're going to talk about light and temperature around the same time. For a longest time, and I think a lot of people feel this way, we put alocasias thinking that it likes medium light or a low light lover. And again, for me, my alocasias, once I gave them more light, like they even got a bit of direct sun in the morning, especially this 𝗣𝗥𝗡𝗧. When I give her direct sun up until about maybe 10–10:30 in the morning, and then give her a really bright indirect light for the rest of the day, these leaves come out even whiter and even more beautiful. So especially if they're variegated, give them a lot of light. But even if you've got, here we go, this Maharani, this is my Maharani. I just bought this on a whim and I fell in love with it from the day one. So again, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 leaves, and there's a 6th coming out. She has had a deal of mealybugs, but she's still giving really good, lots of leaves here. So even this one, you can see fully dark green leaves, no variegation, and I give her a really good, decent grow light. So don't put them in a dark corner, get them into some decent lighting. So this one here, it's not a low light or a medium light plant. Just make sure your alocasias are given a good spot in your home. I'm putting her on the floor to keep her away and not touch any other plant while I've just given her a good clean without any mealybugs, got rid of them. So just keeping her away from everything else while I'm dealing with the pests. But again, we're going to talk about pests in a second because mealybugs aren't the biggest problem. They are tropical plants, so they do like it quite warm. And I can tell you right now, today is 30 degrees outside here. I am sweating. It's really warm, but these guys are loving it because there's good humidity in the room and it is really nice, warm temperature. Again, this is the Goldilocks zone. So anything below 20 degrees Celsius gets a little bit too cold, But anything between 20 and 25, 30, that's the Goldilocks zone. That works very well for them. So again, not too cold. Anything down below 20 degrees, they do start to get a little bit dormant and they go in and they start losing leaves. They can go through winter, and if you're okay with that, let them go dormant, go through winter with hardly any leaves, and then bring them back out to a nice warm environment in spring and summer, which a lot of you are going through right now. So if you do want your alocasias to explode, you'll notice that once it gets to a really beautiful middle of the road tropical, you know, one of those perfect days almost, that's the Goldilocks zone for these alocasias. Again, which is why I call them such divas, and they love the diva treatment. One more thing, if you don't technically want them to go into the dormant phase and you want to keep that heat, try grabbing a heat mat and just putting your plant on a heat mat. A heat mat, you can usually control the temperature as well. So if it goes below 20 degrees, you can get that heat mat to turn on, and if it goes above 24, 25 degrees, you can turn that heat mat off. So you can control the temperature zone, or the controlling around what am I trying to say? The environment around it with a bit more temperature instead of the really dry heat that you get from heaters like air blasters and things. So try using a heat mat and warm the roots, and they will absolutely love it and adore you. That's actually one of the first things I did to really up the game, really up the ante, and get a lot more growth out of these guys. Right, tip number 3. Let's talk about tip number 3. So as I'm putting my microfiber gloves on, we're going to talk about tip number 3, and that is pest control. Because for me, alocasias go together like peanut butter and jam. Or actually, you guys say peanut butter and jelly, don't you, up north, I think? So alocasias and spider mites go together like a martini and 3 olives. Like they match so perfectly, which is unfortunate for my alocasias, because spider mites are really hard to see, as if I'm sure you've come across them, they're really hard to spot. And the only reason you spot them is because they've done damage to your leaf already, which is just frustrating. Honestly, I don't think I've ever had an alocasia that hasn't had spider mites. That's how much they go together. And especially with, come on button, especially with alocasias and the leaves, you'll find that a lot of alocasia leaves have beautiful either like a texture, or, you know, like they've got veins that really stand out, and it's really hard to find those spider mites because there's a lot of little nooks and crannies that they hide in. So when it comes to alocasias and pests, prevention is definitely better than a cure and trying to treat it afterwards. So every few weeks I grab my microfiber gloves. You can grab a cloth or anything that you like, but honestly with gloves it helps you get into all the little nooks and crannies and areas that you probably just wipe over very basically with just a flat cloth. So that's why I do like the gloves. And then I just grab some neem oil spray. This is mixed neem oil spray with a little bit of dish soap and water, and you give them a heavy spray and then wipe it down. And again, make sure you are getting into all the little crevices and the stem and in there, in the rosette itself. Get everywhere with these guys. Take your time if you can, and make sure you get into all the crevices, front and back. Now look, you are going to get spider mites at some time. So if you get spider mites, you're just looking for yellowed edges around the end. And as soon as you see yellowing edges on a healthy plant, double check at the back, especially for spider mites. The other place they really like is in between the 2 lobes, in that little V. You'll sometimes see webbing, and I sometimes just grab some water, some literally simple water spray there, and the webbing becomes much more obvious to the eye if it is there. And speaking of spider mites, actually, I do have a freebie if you'd like to grab it. It is in the description below, and it's literally a playbook about the most common pests you'll find on your plants and how to treat them. It's absolutely free. It's downloadable for you. I'll leave a link in the show notes below. Okay, before we go inside, I'm going to finish off this cleaning and then we'll go talk about the rest of the tips, which for me have been such a game changer, honestly. Okay, so we're back here because I want to explain tip number 4. Now this is where we start to get game-changing tips, but tip 4 and 5, I promise you, that's the things that I really concentrated on, and that made such a difference for me. So if you've been watching my channel, back in September, in spring, the start of spring, I tried to repot 100 plants in one single day. Spoiler alert, didn't quite get there, but that day I did repot nearly all of my alocasias, probably about 60 or 70% of all the alocasias I own. And when I was repotting them, they all almost had one thing in common. They had old, tired, fairly compacted soil, because I just hadn't repotted them in a long time. And honestly, no wonder they wouldn't hold more than 3 leaves for me because the roots just weren't happy in that environment. So for your alocasia to be healthy, the roots like a bit of space. These guys do like repotting quite often, not every 6 months or so, but every couple of years, make sure you repot your alocasia because you need the soil to be nicely aerated. The soil mix needs to hold a lot of water without being too soggy or damp. So again, not too aerated, not too dense, somewhere in the middle with Goldilocks. And the roots themselves and the corms themselves, they don't like compact, cramped soil. So you want that soil mix to be quite loose and easy for those corms and those roots to grow through. Honestly, in my experience, alocasia roots hate being strangled. They want a bit more breathing room than something like your pothos or 𝗖𝗟𝗧𝗦, where I keep them root bound and I keep them, you know, quite dense in their soil when it comes to roots. Whereas these guys, if they're root bound, if those roots are coming out the bottom like you saw with this one, it probably means it's time for a repot. And you can either repot up to the next size or you can repot by just cutting off 1/3 of the roots. It won't harm the plant, but it depends on how big your place is. You know, sometimes you can't just keep going bigger and bigger. But I'm definitely going to move this to a bigger pot next time, probably in the next week or so, now that I've just seen those roots. Unfortunately, if they do feel suffocated, they're probably more likely putting all of their energy just into hanging on and giving you a couple of leaves here and there rather than giving you those rosette type leaves with 4, 5, 6 leaves. So this is one of the big things. If you've got too compact soil or you haven't repotted in a while, trust me, go and repot it. Make yourself a beautiful, you know, half Goldilocks zone potting mix, and your alocasias are going to spread out a little bit more. Their roots are going to be more aerated and you'll get a lot more growth from these guys instead of being strangled. Now, if you want my recipe, I have shared the full details of my latest updated, upgraded alocasia potting mix, including a secret element, but that is going to be in my YouTube members area. But honestly, one of the biggest things I can say is if you upgrade your soil mix with the right nutrients, I feel like it's one of the biggest reasons why I have growth like this instead of like this. So if you want, come and join my membership. There's secret hacks and tips, extra secret videos there just for you. But my alocasias are just exploding with growth right now. I mean, look at it. Hold it. Look at this girl. Look at the leaves. It's all like rotated everywhere. I'm going to show you as many close up as I can. Look at all the babies. Anyway, I'm so proud of this girl and I stare at it all the time now. And actually, I am going to take this plant here, another alocasia that I have, just see in the background. So this is what happens when you have some elements that are pretty good. So these alocasia leaves are pretty huge, look, compared to the 𝗘𝗦𝗦𝗘𝗡𝗧𝗜, right? They're pretty huge leaves, but I've only got 2. I've got a 3rd leaf just there. See, just there? That's coming out. I've got some little growths, which is really late in the day because it's now becoming autumn here, not spring. So I don't know why they're popping up now, but anyway. But I transferred my Jacqueline here into pon a good probably 12 months ago now. And I haven't really had the same success because I honestly think the pon, even though it's aerated, is a bit too compact. It's very, very small. And when it's wet, it can be a bit heavy. So I'm going to transfer this girl into my alocasia potting mix, and I'm not going to keep it in hydroponics anymore. It didn't work for me. As you can see, it's worked. It's okay. My alocasias are still pretty healthy and huge leaves, but they're not giving me the bushy alocasias like this one. It's very, very different. So I truly believe that the right soil mix with all of these things, all these 5 elements mixed together, and we haven't got to the 5th one yet. Honestly, they're going to make your alocasias grow beautifully and give you lush leaves and rosettes that give you multiple leaves really easily. Okay. And then the final tip number 5, is to do with feeding alocasias. And I also think this is where a lot of people go wrong with alocasias. For most of my plants, I take 50%, 75% of what the instructions say on the fertilizer, amount, and I'll water them and fertilize my plants every 3, maybe 2 to 3 weeks. But if you're not used to plants and you're a beginner, you might even do more of a feast and famine, and then you'll fertilize it really heavy and then give it nothing for a long time. Alocasias, when they're growing, when they're in the growing season, are hungry little divas. They love their food. So instead of doing a, diluted amount of 50% of the recommended dose, I use full strength, good quality fertilizer. So if it tells me 7 mils per litre or 20 mils per gallon, that's exactly what I would use. I won't use half strength or double strength. Don't go over because you don't want to burn the leaves slowly but surely with too much fertilizer, but don't dilute it either. And only give it to your alocasias during the growing season. So if you start seeing those little pups start popping up, that's when you give your alocaceas the food, the yummy, yummy food, and give them full strength. I also do add in silica for my variegated plants. So that just helps with strengthening cell walls, and alocaceas, especially for all of my variegated plants, they get silica. And you might have, in fact, I think I have it here somewhere. Oh, don't get out of the way, alocasia. I do. I actually just bought a new one because I ran out. This is SNS209 and is for pest control. And you can use this with your potting mix. You can use this with your hydroponic solution. You can use this anywhere. So it is a natural pest control that goes into the fertilizer, into the cell walls, and helps protect the plant from the inside out. And it is just rosemary extract, if I understand correctly. I'm pretty sure I remember that from a long time ago. So obviously it's still, you know, fertilizer. Don't drink it or eat it. It's not like that. Don't let your pets into it, your kids into it. But I use this every 3 to 4 weeks alongside my fertilizer and alongside my silica. And that seems to help with problem number 3 that we talked about with the spider mite solutions and the pests and all of that. So that does help a bit. So yeah, as I said, follow the instructions for the fertilizer amount exactly, and you'll see your alocaceas start to stack leaves, give you those beautiful rosettes instead of that frustrating 3-leaf alocasia, which we all hate, we all dread. And that's honestly another big reason why my Fridex, my Gardenias, my Maharani, all of them have got really strong rosettes right now, and they're holding steady. All right, so that is the 5 areas, the 5 must-haves. Treat it in the right way. As I said, if there's one big thing you want to remember, try and remember the Goldilocks zone for everything. So good watering rhythm, nice indirect bright light, tropical environment. Spider mite prevention is hugely important for these guys. Roots and soil upgrade if you need it, and make sure your feeding is full strength, not too often, only in the growing season. Goldilocks every time, I promise you, and you will win with those alocaceas. It's taken me 4 to 5 years to figure that out. So hopefully I'm going to save you 4 years of hell with your alocaceas, and you will get some beautiful, amazing alocaceas. I want to hear from you when you have tried these things, if your alocaceas have gotten even better. So please, please comment in below. But do you want to know one more hack, the biggest secret behind my explosive alocasia growth? Want to know the exact thing that took mine from healthy, good growth to can't stop growing with all of these little babies? Well, that is going to be today's cliffhanger, I'm sorry to tell you, because I have 2 bonus videos that will be going up in my member-only area. One of those videos, as I mentioned before, is my DIY potting mix solution exactly as I make it, and the other is one element that I add to my solution, to my plants. It is a hack, but I promise you, it is the easiest, simplest hack that I have ever done, and it will make your alocaceas explode. But it is in my members only area, so you'll have to check that one out. Link is below, or just press the join button you can see just below the screen to find out more. Well, if these care tips gave you a sense of excitement for big, beautiful alocaceas, but also at the same time, you might be thinking to yourself, well, that's a lot of work. Maybe that's a bit too many plant chores. Well, then you need to watch this next video here, because I'm going to walk you through how I really started to get my love back. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, for plants after a very hard 2025, honestly, where my plant care felt more like plant chores than plant joy. So I'm going to talk through exactly what has gotten me through that and how I have brought the joy back to my plants. I'll leave a link for you right here in one of those corners. I can't remember. I always get them confused. Anyway, so I'm going to leave you here today. Have a week full of beautiful rosette alocasia leaves. A lot of love back in 2026, like I always say, and I will see you in the next videos, either in my members area or in this next video all around plant chores. Okay, see you later. Bye. I love how the leaves go from this variegation with the green to, when they're a little bit more mature, they turn into a white. How gorgeous is that?